be treating Premier? Should we be
start taking bookings, given the forecasts show that October 11th is firming as Freedom Day, or not what you want to call it, but is firming as restrictions relaxing? When will they have confidence to start making those bookings?
Well, look, that's a matter for the businesses themselves, and I think we've been pretty clear that we'll start opening up on the Monday after we hit that 70% double dose, and we've been very efficiently putting out that information on a daily basis. So every day, everybody in the community can see what milestones we've reached, what double dose figures we're up to. So I think people can track reasonably where we're likely to be, and the Commonwealth has also provided that similar information. So it really depends on how quickly people take up the second dose. If it continues, we'd always said mid-October would be around the time that's going to occur, and of course it'll be the first Monday afterwards. I'm sure, if it's on a Tuesday, we'll have to wait till the following Monday. If it's a Friday, well, obviously it's less time. But we're trying to give business as much notice as possible, which is why we put out our 70% roadmap quite a few weeks ago now, just to give everybody that information. It's likely to be one of two dates, but again, we want it to be a considered, staged reopening so that people still understand the risk but also appreciate the extra freedoms they have.
Premier, will we start to treat exposure differently? Will the fully vaccinated person who's a close contact still have to isolate for 14 days?
Yeah.
And what about a business? Do they have to close down for 14 days,
Yeah.
or can they stay open?
Yeah. So in terms of what we call in the Doherty plan, there are three planks that really determine how you live with COVID. One is obviously the vaccination rate. The second is the type of public health measures you have in place, like QR codes. And the third thing is what we call TTIQ, which is track, tracing, isolating and quarantine. And the health team at the moment is working on finalising that plan, which we'll make public. So we'll be able to give individuals and businesses good information on what to expect with contact tracing at 70% and 80%. But there's no doubt that if you have the virus, you still have to isolate at home. So we cannot have people exposed with the virus lurking around in the community. So, but again, how that will work and how it's managed, we'll make public. Obviously, you have a different system in place when you have 80% of the population double vaccinated than when we didn't. And so that contact tracing, which is critical, is one of the three planks in the Doherty report, Health is working on at the moment. And as soon as Health finishes that work, we'll make sure we make it public so people understand what to expect. But I can safely say that if you have the virus, you will have to isolate at home until you're not infectious anymore. So all of us, even though you're double vaccinated, are still encouraged to take every precaution we can not to get the virus, and certainly not to expose people, especially those who may not be vaccinated.
New South Wales Health says that it's trying to recruit overseas health staff to help assist during the pandemic. How is that process going?
Well, we've already explained our plans on how we anticipate staff will be changing what they do or have been reskilling. So we've been planning for 18 months. New South Wales Health has been planning for 18 months for what we're likely to expect. And the point I want to make is, whilst we're all gearing up for October, we know also that once you start opening up, case numbers will increase. They'll go through the roof. But the benefit will be when you have high rates of vaccination, we're hoping that will obviously have a downward pressure on the number of people that get hospitalised. So we still have to be careful about what happens in our ICU in November and December and beyond. We've been preparing for this. Our staff have been preparing. Obviously, there's been a call to arms from staff that might have an expertise in a different area, getting ICU capacity training, and that's been in process for the last year and a half. And the clinicians themselves have put the plan together, working with New South Wales Health, and we've conveyed that to the public. So we do warn that people will see things that have been done differently in health in the next couple of months. They may witness things. Their loved ones might be in a hospital that's not close to home. So we're just wanting to warn everybody about what that pressure will look like, what that system will look like, especially when in the clinical definition the system is overwhelmed, which we anticipate it will be for at least a few weeks in October. That is really important for people to know that we've been working towards that and we've been planning for it. But as we say, in a pandemic, you can't always predict what's going to happen, but certainly we know that so far the numbers we're seeing in terms of the hospital system are about what the modelling told us. Hospitalisation rate is slightly less than what we assumed, but the ICU is about what we expected. So that tells us that October's likely to be as bad as we predicted it would be.
But what about the overseas health staff? staff recruitment? What quarantine arrangements being made to ensure they can come into the workforce as quickly as possible?
Well, I don't have any updated information on that. The information I have is based on existing staff requirements, relying on local staff, relying on staff that have been retooled and retrained. So I don't have evidence that that's the case.
Premier, international students are planning on getting them back by the end of the year, but obviously vaccine restrictions are going to mean that people from key markets like China are not going to be able to come into Australia. Is that something that you'd like to see change, and how much is that going to hurt our university plan to kick back up again?
Yeah, so obviously we're really, first of all, we're prioritising Australians coming back home, and I want to make that very clear. But we're also really keen to allow our universities to welcome back those international students. But yes, they will need to be double vaccinated with a vaccine that our federal authorities deem to be adequate and effective. And that's just the way it is. So we encourage anybody who wants to be part of our international student program in the future to get access to a vaccine which our federal authorities regard as effective. And I think our population would understand that. We don't want additional risk put into our system. And I'm really looking forward to those pilots commencing. Ironically, we're about to commence them just prior to the Delta outbreak. The Delta outbreak put a halt to those plans, and I'm really pleased the Treasurer now is in a position to be able to dust off those plans and see those flights come in. They'll be at the expense of the students, but our priority will remain welcoming home Australian residents, obviously.